18. Meeting is now called to order. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for our many blessings. We're thankful to meet together as a group, and we ask that you'll bless us, that we'll make the best decisions for the city moving forward. We ask that you'll bless our leaders, you'll bless our policemen, our firemen, our administrators, and we ask that you'll bless our military. We ask when the time comes that we'll all leave in safety. These things we say in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Okay, we have a quorum. Next on the agenda is comments of council members and special recognitions or resolutions.
Madam President,
Yes, Councilor Williams?
I've received phone calls from people across town during the time that we apparently had another shooting, and it's my understanding that we had one officer respond to that shooting while the beer fest was going on. So I'm not sure on exactly what was going on or how it happened or how it played out, but I've had calls from crosstown. Actually, I haven't had time to correspond with my fellow colleague in that particular area, but I hope that wasn't the case as we move forward. Secondly, we're receiving numerous complaints about crimes against property in my particular district, i.e., tire slashing, windows being broken into, people doing this, stealing little money, whatever is in the car, that kind of thing. That's skyrocketed. And two, another issue I'm having is I've been asked and inquired about what are we going to do about getting more police officers and DPW workers across the board. That's all I have for now.
Okay, any other counselors?
Madam President, I have a couple.
Okay.
One of the constituents asked me about the 911 versus the 311. The emergencies are still supposed to go to 911, but the 311 are for non-emergencies. And in Lawrence, it would be the police department at our non-emergency number at 545-7575. Now, due to the Indiana Supreme Court ruling on September the 25th, 2018, the trains will no longer be ticketed for stalling on the tracks over 10 minutes or so. So are we okay with that? Or I know we can't be okay with it, but this is what the Supreme Court ruled. And then also, there is a flashing neon sign by the St. Mary's Child Care Center on the fort. And I just ask that you all slow down and watch our kids. And hopefully, we have set aside some funds for our grants in this year's budget, helping with Keep Lawrence Beautiful. I understand grant money is never free. Even though grants are usually 80%, we have to come up with the other 20% of the funding. And of course, we still have to meet the deadlines of the projects. And I know that's a difficult task, too. And I just need somebody from the administration to explain to the other residents in Old Lawrence that the money that is being spent on the fort is actually from the reuse authority and not the administration, because the money's coming out of two different pockets. And they're kind of confused about that. Why aren't they getting some things down there and we getting everything built out in this area? That's all I have.
Okay, any other counselors?
Madam President,
Yes, Counselor Jones?
sounds kind of redundant, but I'd like to thank Jim Hennigan. He seems like the superhero of the month every month. There was a couch that was placed at the 8900 Block Shopping Center, blocking the road to Post Road. And within approximately 10 to 15 minutes, he went over and picked it up and disposed of it. So kudos to him, and thank you for your hard work and being so quick.
Any other counselors?
Madam President,
Yes, Counselor
May.
Wells?
I have a few things. First off, we have discussed a number of times about these vacant homes, about the weeds, the grass, just a general negligence of the properties in itself. The one that I've complained about a number of times was one that's just next to the old high school, which is across the street from me. And they set the garage on fire today, somebody did, and they also tried to set the house on fire, but luckily it didn't take. So I ask everybody that if they have an empty home in your neighborhood close to you, keep a really close eye, and if you see anybody around that property, definitely report it to the police. Hopefully this is an isolated incident, but I don't, I just didn't hope it doesn't take place someplace else. The second thing that I wanted to ask is, are we discussing the budget tonight?
Absolutely.
Okay, so, because I didn't really see it spelled out on the sheet here, on the agenda. And then the other thing, I see that Chief Hoffman is in the auditorium. You and I had a discussion about an email to Virgil Aldridge, and I'm still waiting for the clarification on that, if I could, Chief. Thank you.
Clarification on, Rick,
sorry?
clarification on what email?
For Virgil Aldridge.
Thank you.
Any other counselors?
Madam President, one more thing.
Yes,
I
Counselor
will,
Williams?
if I can. Mr. Fenwick, I brought up the fact of about these community block grants here a few months ago, several months ago, and we actually had Mayor Collier speak on what those grants can be used for or not. I have it detailed exactly what those grants could be used for. And my question is have we applied to those, for those community block grants? Have we even applied? Well, I know the deadline has passed. We had a short window there, and it was brought up early enough, and it was commented on. And I just wanted to know, did we ever apply for those community block grants?
Yes, if this is the community crossings for paving grant, yes, we did apply.
For pavings?
Correct.
Okay, the community grants I'm talking about are for the, excuse me?
CDBG?
Yes. Yes. So that included, infrastructural, which paving is in part. But is that the same grant? Are we talking about the same grant that the mayor spoke on?
I recall the discussion being on the community crossings grant program, which has been out now for a couple of years, which is available by the state for funding for road infrastructure, which we have applied for that in multiple years.
And
The grant program I'm aware of and referring to.
And so what was the matching? 50/50? Because that's what was saying. And so we were able to match 50/50?
Correct.
And we just used that strictly for paving?
Correct.
Okay.
Madam,
Did you want to ask a question on that, Counselor Giles?
I just want some
Comment?
clarity now that he said it. I'm just interested. Is that the same grant that we had to do the asset mapping for, and we got the match when we originally, so we got that grant 2 years ago, and we got funded for 2 years, I believe.
It's an annual program. You can apply for it every year, but yes, that's the same one.
And we got the max that 1 year, like $1 million, I think.
First year, we received the max. Second year, we did not. The third
Any other counselors?
One more thing. So I know that I inquired about some sidewalks needing repair. Maybe Mr. Jim, you can comment on it or not. But I know that you guys came out and marked the sidewalks that need repair, and I appreciate that. Do we have a time frame on fixing them or? Not yet? Okay, thank you, sir.
We're going to try something different then.
Oh, okay. All right.
Any other counselors? Okay, and to your question, Counselor Wells, when Counselor Giles does the Finance Committee report, we have questions at that time specifically relating to the budget, the council. I'm going to open up that time frame for any questions that need to be addressed, reference the budget, and then also, of course, we're going to open up for public hearing as well. Okay?
Do you mind, Madam President, at that time, if we bring Mr. Fenwick up to be able to
Absolutely.
answer the council's questions?
Absolutely. Okay. Next on the agenda, we'll have approval of minutes of regular meetings of September 4th and September 19th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion.
Motion, Counselor Freeman.
Second.
Second, Counselor Parker. All in favor by show of hands? Unanimous? Next, we have 2018, I'm sorry, I missed out on the special meeting of September 4th. So let me back up and
I thought that's what you want.
ensure that everyone is fine with still approving the minutes for all three. By show of hands? By show of hands, let's just do it again. Okay, unanimous, thank you. Next on the agenda, we have signing of vouchers, approval of claims, and authorization of payment. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion, Counselor Chevlot. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Counselor Freeman. Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Unanimous? Next, we have report of committees. Code.
President, Code Committee met, and we had two proposals for discussion. Proposal number 7, and, well, as you were. We had proposal number 12 and proposal number 13. Proposal number 7 was still up to be set for a meeting with the police department, Chief Hoffman and Councilor Wells, our council and their council. So as soon as that meeting take place, and I guess we'll move forward. But I think we are getting close to expiration on that proposal, if I'm not mistaken.
That can be extended.
Okay. I would ask for more time so Councilor Wells can look more into that proposal.
Absolutely.
Okay, on proposal number 12 and 13, for the sake of time, it was a unanimous vote to move forward for the council for recommendation for passing.
Okay. All right, Finance Committee.
Yes, Madam President, we had a Finance Committee, Finance Committee meeting. We had a lot of proposals that we did go over during that meeting. Myself, Councilman Chavis, as well as Councilman Chevlot were involved in that meeting. Our proposals that we discussed were proposal, and please, some of my other Finance Committee folks, please chime in if I overlook something, and I apologize in advance if I do. We did a proposal number 14, 15, 16, 17 and 18. And again, I want to lean on my fellow committee members here. We approved for recommendation of all of those. Besides, we did have a discussion, Tom, on doing something a little different with one of them. Could you please, I can't quite remember exactly what we were going that might be able to share the full council.
The one that comes to mind is we amended
Proposal 15.
Proposal-
Director of Parks and Recreation.
correct. The Proposal 15, fixing the salaries of appointed officers and employees. What we did is we amended the band of salary to be consistent with other department heads. Didn't mean that that person would automatically go to that. It was just to try to be consistent. So I made the motion to amend that, and it was second, and it was passed, and so it was the one conversation.
So outside of that, thank you, Tom, for pitching in there. So outside of that, Madam Chair, we were able to recommend all those proposals to full council for recommendation.
Okay, so is there any questions for any council members regarding those proposals?
Are you talking about like each proposals or question?
Yes,
Yes.
because they are all part of the budget discussion.
I have two.
Okay.
My first one is proposal number 15. And just my question is on second page where it says salary exempt employees. The thing I look at is I know we were told at the very beginning, transparency. And when I look through here and I see these numbers, they range anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 difference. So my question is, I mean, we're going to vote on this, but I have no idea what these people are making. And it would be nice if those numbers would show exactly what they're making. I mean, we're only talking about one person in each one of these. If you go to the next page, I can understand it because there's multiple employees and they're going to make different ranges. But I mean, to have a gap from $15,000 to $25,000 on different people, I mean, it's hard for me personally to vote on that and not know exactly how much they're making. I don't know why we just don't post what they're making.
Okay, so let me chime in here, and then Controller Fenwick, if you can be my backup here and make sure I'm stating this correctly. But these are these salaries are part of the salary ordinance. So it's just a pay range for every position. Not all positions are filled, but they are part of the salary ordinance. And so there are positions that are listed on here that we don't have a person actually in that position. And the only thing that we've done in the past 2 years is we've increased the range by 3%. In conjunction with the maximum amount of raise that can be given to any employee during this budget year.
And I get that, and I met with Mr. Fenwick. He was very pleasant with me, but I just look at it, and I know we have a corporate counsel. I don't know why we just don't write down the exact amount he has. I know we have a controller, deputy mayor. I don't know why we just don't write down exactly what it is, and so on and so on. If we have it, I just don't understand why we don't write it down rather than having such a huge gap. That was just my concern.
Now, keep in mind that this isn't about what individual people makes. It's about an ordinance that basically legally binds us to pay an employee within the range. That's all it is. I'm sure that, it's public information if we want to know what any one individual that works for the city makes. We can ask that, and we should be given that information. Is that accurate?
Madam President? All we have to, I know Jason will probably say the actual name of it. There's a website with the state.
Gateway.
Huh?
Gateway.
Gateway, and I mean, it tells you to the dollar what everybody.
Every year, all salaries for any employee that's received compensation, not only for the city of Lawrence, but any municipality in the state of Indiana, you have to file that on Gateway, so it's available right now.
And that's the way that I learned that we pay a lot of overtime. That goes above and beyond the range.
And that is, just to be clear, when you have a job classification, somebody can enter or leave that job classification. You may have a situation where multiple people have the same title. You have people with seniority or different levels of experience who may be higher in the range than folks that are just entering into that position. Don't go anywhere. If Mr. Fenwick left, you may or may not pay his replacement the same amount or a different amount, and that's what the ranges allow the city the flexibility to do.
Madam President, if I may.
Go ahead, Councilor Wells.
Is this what the budget reflects, just for clarification, that the budget would have to be on the upper end, or we'd have to provide for the upper end of these ranges for all these different salaries, or we're just going to provide the 3% raise for what they're being paid currently right now?
The budget reflects current salaries plus the 3%.
So could we not see that? Could we not see what the current salaries are and possibly who makes the individual person?
Like I said, it's available. You could get on Gateway tonight and pull that information.
So that information with the person that's
Correct.
making it is on the Gateway as well?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Madam President, I have one question.
Yes, Councilor Williams.
So it's been inquired a few times, or several times, actually, Mr. Fenwick. You hold 3 titles in the city, is that correct? Yes.
Do I hold 3 titles? Yes.
And each title there's a salary for each title, is that correct?
No, that's not.
Okay, that's not correct.
Yes. That's
How many of the 3 actually are salary?
2.
2. And so, do you get paid for both of those titles?
Correct, I do.
You do, okay. Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair, though, I do want to make sure for clarity, though, because I was involved in paying a close attention to your salary when we gave you that. It's not like the 2 titles. If the range is 80 grand for the 2 titles, it's not that your salary is 160. We kind of combo.
160.
Then we combo that because some of those roles that you have, the duties overlap. So sometimes you're serving as the deputy mayor and controller with the same swipe of the pen.
Mm-hmm.
So that was in consideration when we considered those professional folks in the city. I remember that was very close. We had a lot of talk about that when we made those significant raises what was that?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Madam President, case in point, that's, I believe, is even more reason that my fellow councilors have concerns that we spell it out so that we can be absolutely transparent on exactly what the salaries are, so we can act, so not only we can have clarity, that the people have clarity, because a lot of the questions that we receive come from people that are paying close attention to these council meetings. And when I go back out in my district and or multiple people that I know across this city, and when they pose questions, that is, I will bring the question to the public forum. So I tend to understand Councilor Jones and Councilor Wells' concern when it comes to just spelling it out. Not everyone has a computer. Not everyone has access to or can get access to Gateway. So I just think that if we simplified it even more, it would just only enhance the transparency.
Madam Chair, I'm Fakwish, please. I'm so sorry if I must most respectfully totally disagree with that line of philosophy. I do not want our city to be posting people's salary up in the break room, and the only way to make that so available
Never said
to
the
people,
break room.
I'm only talking about if it's as far as making it so public that we would put it where we would put maybe a public hearing announcement if the person can't go to the internet or go and kind of find a way to maybe pull that information in a private manner, maybe coming. I just worry about, I know I wouldn't want to work for an employer that had my salary so relatively posted, even though I'm a public official, at least kind of make the inquiring mind go and take a good look. That's just my concern as an employee, thinking about the employees.
Yeah, respectfully, Counselor Giles, but it's no different than we advertising what a police officer make, and I think if anyone should have privacy, would be a police officer. We advertise their salaries to draw them in, and that is part of the public ability to see what the salary is and decide whether or not they would like to apply. So that's just, we're just talking about, little something here or there, but at the end of the day, that's my take on it.
So let me bring us back to ordinance number 15. So ordinance number 15 is only as it relates to salary ranges. And if any counselor would like to get that information, I would encourage you to go online, or if access is an issue, to get that. I'm sure the controller or anyone would be willing to help you get that information. And I would encourage us to share that information when asked, since we know where to get it now as public officials, to share it with our constituents if asked. There's no reason why we can't do that. And so now we know the resource to go out and get the information. But I just don't want us to get off track, because amended ordinance number 15 is only about setting salary ranges. So I want us to stay focused on the proposals, and then we'll have opportunities to ask specific questions about budget, salaries as it relates to budget, and all the other line items, okay? So are there any more questions as it relates to ordinance number 15?
Madam President, if I may.
Yes.
I will, attempt to look at this gateway, and sometimes, as I do have a computer, I'm probably not the most efficient person with it, but whether or not I can access this information, I know that in the past, information that I have tried to get from this administration has been difficult at best, and this budget's supposed to be passed, in 2 weeks or less, and I've never gotten an information request ever in that short length of time. So, and I guess my other concern is this not the first group meeting we've had in regard to this budget?
No. There's been a finance committee meeting that was held about 3 weeks ago, I want to say.
That's not of the whole council, that was just of the finance committee.
So all committee meetings are open, just like the finance committee that we hold every year about budget. We have done council as a whole, we have done the finance, we've done it a combination of ways over this is our third year now doing the budget. But like any other committee meeting, every council person is a citizen in this city and can come and ask questions as a citizen or as a council member about anything that's on the agenda.
With all due respect, Madam President, finance committee meetings, any committee meetings, you're limited to a certain time frame. I have attended them in the past before too, and I've been cut off due to the time. And, my point is this not the first meeting and the only meeting that we have had as a council as a whole where, there's not a stopwatch on what we say or the questions that we ask?
So as a member of the finance committee, I have never seen anyone be time limited. So I do want to put that out there. Secondly, not on the finance committee. I'm not saying that hasn't happened on other committees, but on the finance committee, it has not been time limited. We have taken any questions and allowed council persons or citizens to ask questions and have not put a limit on the time for the finance committee. Second of all, the budget is a function of the Finance Committee. It is not a function of committee as a whole. Committee, the whole council votes on it, but it's no different than anything else that I assign to committee. It is that committee's responsibility to review, to ask questions, and to make a recommendation. And all counselors are welcome to come and participate at any point in the process, just like any other ordinance or proposal. So we will take as much time as we need tonight, might be a long night, and as I offered in the last meeting, if you feel it necessary for a finance committee meeting, I'm sure Councilor Giles would be open to do that. So we can put one on the books between now and when we vote on the budget.
Which will be,
It'll be either the 17th or the 18th of October, to be determined. So 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks from today.
okay, I guess I'm confused. I thought it was going to be at the mid-month meeting, which would be what, the 17th? Is what's on the docket at this point?
At this point, it's scheduled for the 17th, subject to be changed to the 18th. But like I said, that has not been confirmed at this point. So right now, it is on the books for the 17th of October.
So if I may go back to my original question, is this not the first and only committee of the whole, or the meeting of the whole of this finance for this whole council?
I'm going to disagree with you, Councilor Wells, and I'm going to say that like every other committee meeting, all counselors are invited and welcome to attend to ask any questions. So that meeting took place approximately 3 weeks ago, and we did have a council member attend. So let's just move on from this. We can schedule additional meetings. Controller Fenwick is available for questions. Councilor Giles is available for questions. Our council attorney is available for questions, and I'm sure the department heads are as well. So let's try to get through as much of the budget, the questions, and the proposals as we can, okay? So if we're done with proposal number 15, are there any more questions on proposal number 15? All right, let's move ahead on to the next proposal. I'm going to sort of back up. Are there any questions on proposal number 14? That's fixing salaries of officers in police department and fire department.
And just to make clear, there was a lot of dialogue in that finance committee meeting that I think lasted probably at least an hour and a half, and I think the chair was very gracious in allowing anybody to speak, but this tracks with the contract that both police and fire agreed to. So whatever is in this budget, this proposal tracks with what the contract that the administration and both the FOP and the 416 all agreed to.
Any questions on that proposal?
Madam President, so I'm clear on the contracts of public safety, but this also includes all departmental heads, is that correct?
Are you saying departmental heads as far as police and fire?
Correct.
I believe it's all inclusive, is that correct, Controller Fenwick? Yes.
I would like to make a motion to amend proposal number 14 for all employees except for departmental heads be given a increase. Is that appropriate at this time?
That's already in.
It's already in there.
Not to, is what I'm getting at. I'm sorry, the key word is not. And all the employees, let me be absolutely clear, all the subordinate employees, I'm absolutely for them, and I have my reasoning. Go ahead, unless there's something I'm
Okay,
missing.
so remember, we're on reports of committee right now. So let's just hold off. We're not on unfinished business. We're on reports of committee, and I was allowing counselors to ask questions or have dialogue about the report, the finance report for the finance meeting that took place approximately 3 weeks ago. And then if you want to make a motion, once we get down to unfinished business, you will be able to do that at that
Oh,
time,
okay.
Counselor
All right.
Williams.
Okay, I wasn't clear, sorry.
That's okay. Any other questions or comments on proposal number 14? Okay, moving on to proposal number 16. Any questions on that? Okay, moving on to proposal number 17.
Madam President,
Yes, Counselor
I
Jones.
have 3 or 4 on this one.
Okay,
On the second page, letter H says vacation time generally may not be carried over from one year to another. My understanding is vacation time has always been carried over. And then later on, it does say that an employee may with approval of the employee's department head. And then on page 3, about 3/4 of the way down, last paragraph, it says, however, an employee may, with approval of the employee's department head, carry over a maximum of 96 hours. I think that word should be changed to shall instead of may, is what my preference would be. Because number one, it doesn't give a time period, how much time that person has to give it to you, and that department head does not have to give it to you if they don't want to. And then on page 4, same thing too, third paragraph down, for employees hired on or after January 1st, 2019, the rules of accrual sick leave is the same as those pertaining to the accrual of vacation credit and prescribed in the division pertaining to vacation leave, except that an employee may, with approval of the employee's department head, carry over a max of 200 hours. I think that should also be changed to shall.
I think it's may because it's discretionary. It's going to depend on whether there's budget to actually allow for carryover. I think this is an attempt to help us to mitigate paying out large sums of money when people leave the city. And so therefore, I believe, and legal counsel, controller, speak up if I'm talking out of turn, but I believe it says may because it's discretionary. If it says shall, then it's no longer discretionary, it's required.
Well, the problem I see too is if you have a boss that you're not getting along with, he may not allow you, but he may allow someone else. I don't know that that would happen, but it could happen.
Madam President, I'm sorry, what are you doing?
And then I got a couple more, but.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Counselor Jones, finish
Thank
up,
you.
and I'll go to
And
Counselor
then when you
Jones.
go down to D, any employee utilizing more than 24 hours of sick leave shall forward through his or her department head account, controller's office, a certificate from the employee's attendee. But when you Google attendee, it says doctor. And I don't have city insurance. So first day I'm sick, I probably won't do anything. The second day I'm sick, I may decide, hey, I need to go to the doctor. I call my doctor, and 9 times out of 10, he's not going to see me the next day. So I'm either going to see a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant. So with that terminology, that would not fit. And then as you go on, it says describing the nature and duration of the illness. Well, in the 1973 Rehabilitation Act, Federal Law Act, that is a direct violation. The only time that would have to be told to an employee is if someone had tuberculosis or some kind of dangerous disease. So that would be unlawful.
I'm not sure that's accurate, sir, at all. But, I mean, obviously, the city is required to keep confidential the medical records of any employee. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Johnson. So I believe that's a fairly standard practice. I think your point is well taken in this modern world as to physician, being able to reach a physician. Most people in the clinic will see a nurse practitioner or physician's assistant. I think that's a point well taken, but subject to check, I do not believe that to be true. I think it's a very common government practice. In fact, when I worked for the state of Indiana, that was the requirement.
I talked to an attorney that specializes in this, and this is what he told me, so.
The question I would have on that particular one is any employee, is there any employees within the city of Lawrence that don't take insurance through the city?
Off the top of my head, I'm sure there are, but I don't have the number.
Okay.
And I did talk to Mr. Fenwick about this, and I'll give him credit. He said that usually this is not a issue. It's just for those that take advantage of the program, but I do know sometimes you cannot see a doctor at the last minute. You're going to either see a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant. So I just think that some of the language should probably be cleaned up a little bit.
Thank you, Counselor Jones. Thank you for
Madam
doing your homework on that. Yes.
Madam Chair, I want to say that Councilor Jones's point is very taken when it comes to the assistant and physician assistant and nurse practitioner. Very well taken, and I support that. But I do want to talk about, and this won't be very popular, but the spirit of the ordinance. As Mr. Fenwick has came up here and he's been alarming us about this ever since the man probably found out about the level of liability that our city has. And so unfortunately, for our city to be able to meet its liabilities and meet its services for the foreseeable future, and Mr. Fenwick put together a great document that explains all of that very clearly, we got to make a choice. We're going to have to write some of our predecessors, I won't say wrong, but what they did with the tools that they had. And part of that was they didn't have money to give people fiscal raises. They did it with vacation. But because of the leadership, because of where we're at and how we've gotten ourselves in this point, we can give people cash raises, internal vacation that straps the city. Someone made a decision 15 years ago that potentially, if not addressed, could put us in a bad decision today. So we're just trying to correct that, and unfortunately, some of the perks of the job might seem to be taken away, but it's an effort to maintain that we can give them longevity, do what we say we're going to do for our folks, and put a plan together that is sustainable for our city. So I just wanted to talk about the spirit of why we've had to, say you can't roll over all that time year after year after year. Otherwise, we're still we're not attacking the problem that we're in. If I'm wrong, I stand correct. Please, someone correct me.
I totally agree with you, Councilor Giles. I just, I totally get it. I understand it, and I agree with it. I just think some of the terminology could be cleaned up a little better, so there's not an issue later down the road. I know with this administration, I don't think there will be a problem, but the next administration, there could be a problem.
I'm only addressing your shall and your may, because that changes the whole spirit of it, as well as, I will say this from the podium, and I have no problem saying this. I have said this many times, and I'm sorry if this is off. If city workers would like to have that type of fairness that you're speaking of, I suggest that they organize. But at this point, because they're not organized, it's at we have to give the discretion of the mayor. It's a performance-based system that we have here. And so I look at the spirit of this as it's performance-based. The salary ranges, all of that is very performance-based. And so if we want to get away from that, then I think that it leads us down a road of of them organizing, and then we'll address them like we address police and fire, which, to be quite honest with you, I think all of our workers should be organized and get the same treatment. But that's not for me to decide. That's for them to decide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Back to proposal number 17, 2018. Any more questions?
Actually, not a question, a comment. I mean, I think that Bob has a good point. I think that when you're talking about giving someone a raise, you're talking about a performance-based increase. But when you're talking about, if we're talking about sick leave and vacation time, are we talking about something that people have accrued because they've worked so many hours? And then it comes to a point where a manager has the decision whether or not they're going to get to carry that forward? I think it is something that maybe needs to be discussed, maybe needs to be looked at. I think there's a little bit of a difference between something that you've earned, maybe based on what you've worked, and then a performance increase based on your actual performance.
I don't think anyone's taking away what they earn. They just say you have to use it before the end of the year, just like it's always. I've never had a job in 20 years of my professional career that I was able to roll over significant time. You have to, if you don't use it, you lose it. I mean, that's like a common talk around the break. You know, everybody's taking vacation.
Right.
And
No, I completely agree, but I thought the discussion was that it was something that had to be decided upon by that person's supervisor. Is that not correct?
No, it only gives the supervisor some to be gracious enough if there was some situation that occurred that made that make sense for that particular person to be able to roll over a few hours because of some particular situation. It gives the management the opportunity to do, you know, what might be particularly right for that person, instead of it being a hard line of, no, you lose it, and there's nothing else we can say about it.
So, yeah, so just to further clarify that, we actually have more latitude and flexibility than what's common practice. Usually it's, 40 hours, 80 hours, what it is for your employee, and that's it. And there is no discretion, and there is no may, shall, or anything like that.
Right.
You use it or you lose it. So I think what we've done is we put into place the ability for us to look at things on a case-by-case basis. For instance, if there is a situation where there's a shortage in a department and they're not able to give someone time off, well, then they probably would allow them to roll over some of that time because they couldn't grant them the vacation. So it actually gives the city more flexibility to protect the employee, in my opinion.
Yes.
Because my employer, it's 40 hours. It don't matter whether you lose it. You don't use it, you lose it. So I think we actually have an opportunity where we can actually look at things on a case-by-case and make the right decision at the right time for that employee.
That's exactly.
Anyone else have any other questions or comments on that, though? I appreciate the dialogue because I think it's important that we talk it through and that we understand what's being proposed.
One last thing. And in talking to Mr. Fenwick, I don't think this was, I think this was the prior administration. I have never heard of a company where you have to notify your supervisor to carry over your sick time. Usually everyone it gets carried over no matter what. But on page 4, it says you have to notify your supervisor in order to carry over your sick time. And I know we have people that, single moms, single dads, and sometimes they may not have time or they forget, and they may forget. I did go talk to Bev Solenberg with Mr. Fenwick's permission, and she is very assertive, and it's not been an issue in the past. But it's one of those things that a new administration may come in and it could be an issue. But I do not know of any company where you have to write a letter to carry over your sick time. It's automatically done. Even my wife works with the school system. It's automatically done.
Madam Chair, I think that what I want to say is the whole spirit of this ordinance is that it won't be done. It is going to be that people won't get their time rolled over for most of the time unless there's some sort of Otherwise, why it hasn't been an option before, because we never changed the ordinance. As it stands today, you can roll all your time over, and that is why we got people that got $40,000 and $50,000 payouts potentially on vacation time alone. So if you don't support that part, in my opinion, you probably don't support the whole spirit of the ordinance, because we are taking a little bit, but we're going to give them back in cash, and we're trying to stabilize the city.
Any other questions or comments?
Madam President, so the little blurb that I read, this is 2019 going forward, correct?
Correct.
Let me go back. Stay the same.
Is that all, Council Williams? Is that? Okay, okay. Any other counselors? Okay, move it.
President, if I may,
Yes, Counselor
I don't know
Wells.
if we were on one particular proposal or not, but just kind of a general overview of the finance process or the budget process in general is, I've been watching council meetings for a number of years, and I have spoken to previous counselors. We have two that's in our midst that served on councils prior to this one. And my understanding is when there is a significant increase in the budget, as we have, at least the way I see it, is that we look for, the council looks for an independent outside accountant to come in to review, what's being proposed. And we've never done that as a council. This council's never done that. And to me, I don't think that it's totally inappropriate. I know we don't have the money in our professional services budget, but I'm not so sure that maybe we shouldn't appropriate the money needed and to have this thing just overviewed. This whole process is, I've never seen a budget go through as quickly as this one has gone through.
Madam Chair.
So, wait a minute. Let me comment on this first. So, we're following the same process. This is year 3 for this council. We're following the same process on the same timeline that we have for the past 2 years. I have to state that because that is fact. And, our State Board of Accounts deadlines, they don't change year to year. So we receive the budget from Controller Fenwick pretty much the same time that we did last year and the year before last, and we have the same amount of time to meet, discuss, talk about. I've met with a counselor offline. We've gone through the budget with questions and concerns we have. And also, I just want to clarify that there has not been a significant increase in the overall budget year over year. Furthermore, without us, and I think we've done a really good job as a council, and I think the controller has done an excellent job of presenting a budget balance, a balanced budget over the past. This will be year number 3. So I just think if you are having any concerns about anything in particular, Councilor Wells, we really just need to meet. We need to get with the controller. We need to get with the finance chair, and we need to get your questions answered, because this is year 3 of us going through this process. We're doing it the same way we've done it the past 2 years. Nothing is different.
I want to add,
I'm sorry, and I totally agree, and I have problems with it the last 2 times, or however many times we've done it in the past. I think it was rushed. I think it's being rushed this time.
So it's not rushed because you can't get it any earlier than we're getting it, and you have to approve it by a certain date. So we don't dictate the time frame. Controller, can you add anything additional to what I'm saying?
I'm sorry.
And let Controller Fenwick go, and then I'll let you go, Councilor Giles, because I don't want to misstate anything.
I agree with everything you've said. I mean, this process is identical this year as it has been the last 2 years. This budget was actually placed, I believe, in all the council's inboxes the last week of August. So we're at October 1st today. So it's been out for at least 6 weeks. It's been posted on our website. It's been placed on social media. I think this is the most detailed budget you will ever receive. I think I would challenge you to put our budget up against any other communities in terms of transparency and detail, and you won't find it, compared to ours. Like I said, it's been out for 6 weeks. I have fielded questions from those who have either called or stopped by. I have not received a single question from Councilor Wells. President Chavis is right. This process is dictated by state statute. We're on a pretty strict timeline, and this budget could not be introduced any sooner than it is now.
And I'll add, the role of the committee, as the president sets committees, is to vet these, and as fellow council members have issues or questions, either you go to the controller or you go to a committee member that is responsible for reviewing this maybe in detail. And I'll give one example. It was brought to my attention last year that the council would like to have discretionary money to be able to spend in each of our districts. So we're not going and we're not having this $27 million budget and we need a sidewalk repair or we need a storm sewer drain or whatever. And so I literally put this into the budget that this council has discretionary funds of $100,000 that any council member from any district can come and petition and say, I need $30,000 for this project in my district. So the role of the committee is to be able to take that information, and then through that, I communicated it to Controller Fenwick and said, this is important because I've had 2 of my fellow council peers say this is important that we have some discretionary money. He didn't give us as much as I would have liked. I get that, but it's a start. It's a start. So I look at the role of the committee is we go through this, and if you have questions, you can either, as President Chavis said, call the controller, or go through one of the committee members, or attend the committee meeting that we had that was about an hour and a half long. And then we now have a public meeting that we'll be able to ask more and more. So respectfully, I understand your question, Councilor Wells, but the committee is responsible for vetting this and looking this through and taking input from everyone that's not on the committee. Just like when I'm not on code, but if there's certain things that I need in my district for code, I try to reach out to some of my council members and say, hey, this is important. Whether it's a stop sign or whether it's a pet ordinance, whatever that is, that's the function that I look at as the committee.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Counselor Giles.
I have a long memory, and unfortunately, I think some of my fellow councilors do not. You're right, Councilman Wells. It is not very common for councils to have their controller write their budget. And if you remember when we started, we rewrote his budget. And I learned a lot about budget because guess what? I and the lawyer for Bose rewrote it because this council would barely give me enough money to pay the lawyer. They wouldn't give me any money to consult to bring in that third party. And I fought for that, and it was very much brought against me, hardcore. And Mr. Fenwick and I, our relationship changed at that time because not only did he write a budget that was awesome and award-winning, how much money have you saved the city in not hiring consultants to write the budget, sir? Because that was impressive to me.
About $250,000 a year.
$250,000 a year. So that is what, $750,000 of real money that this man has done in his regular job duty. I find that to be impressive, and he has earned awards, and our city now has the ability to actually pay to give people raises. Well, we didn't have that before, so I'm sorry. I think this council, this finance committee, and this controller has done a fantastic job moving Lawrence forward, and I'm going to stand up for what I think is right, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to proposal number 18, appropriations and tax rates for the 2019 budget year. And at this time, I am going to go ahead and open it up for a public hearing. Is there any members of the public that would like to speak, make comment, or ask questions during the public hearing? I don't think we have a sheet in the back, but if you would just step forward, state your name and address for the record.
There was a name on the sheet back there.
That was just some citizens' comments for
Oh,
the
okay.
meeting. I didn't have one specific for the hearing.
Okay, so I just wanted to open it up. If we don't have anyone, that's fine. The public hearing is now closed. Okay, next we're at unfinished business. Proposal number 7, 2018. I can just go down it if you want to, whichever one you want to do. You want to read it by title?
I can read it still in committee, though.
Should-
You want me to read it? Proposal number 7, 2018, introduced by Councilor Wells, a proposal for an ordinance amending the municipal code of the City of Lawrence, Indiana to adopt a new chapter of Title III, Article 3, to establish standards for private event security and fines for public nuisances.
So that remains in committee, and we'll extend that for additional, let's say, 30 days for now. And Councilor Wells, just let me know if you need more time than that. Next is proposal number 12, 2018.
Proposal number 12, 2018, introduced by Councilor Parker, a proposal for an ordinance amending the municipal code of the City of Lawrence, Indiana regarding discipline and promotions.
Okay, that was recommended to council for approval.
I make a motion that we approve.
Okay, motion, Councilor Parker.
Second.
Second, Councilor Williams, I think I heard first. Any discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I would like to ask the chair of the committee to just give me a little more. I don't have any questions. I just need a little better understanding. I will. I'm just a little ignorant to it.
If you just give a overview for proposal number 12, Councilor Parker.
There were basically two changes connected with this proposal. The first one had to do with discipline, the structure of discipline. Right now, the current discipline, and actually Chief Vitalis may tell this a lot more in detail than I can, but the current setup is it does not allow for the 48-hour shifts to be disciplined for 2 shifts. It's just for 40 hours. So in other words, if he wanted to discipline someone for 2 shifts, they would have to come back in the middle of their second shift, which means that someone that works at the station would have to leave and go to a different station to allow for that. So it's very disruptive, and it's outdated, and it needs to be updated. The second part has to do with merits. Right now, they have to come before the council. If they want to, or regarding promotions, they have to come before the council, and then we send it to a committee. It comes back to the council for recommendation. Then it ultimately goes back to the Fire Merit Commission. This was also put in place before a Fire Merit Commission existed. At least that's my understanding. And so it's really repetitive. I mean, it's not necessary. And the way that it was explained to me, it did make sense, both facets of this. But if you have questions, I know that Chief Vitalis would probably explain it a lot more eloquently than I can.
Any additional questions that any other council members have on that while we have Chief Vitalis here?
that was the base, because that was, the 40 hours was based on somebody that works Monday through Friday. If we discipline somebody for the 40 hours, that person that's given discipline comes in at midnight. So somebody that, and I have no problem with that person being disciplined, but then the battalion and the person that has done anything, it's got to pick their stuff up at midnight and move to, it's a scheduling headache. So we've never had anything in place to deal with shift suspensions. This was all geared towards people that are on days.
Okay, I think we're good. So we have a motion, Counselor Parker. And did I have a second from Counselor Williams? Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor by a show of hands? Unanimous. Proposal number 13, 2018.
Proposal number 13, 2018, introduced by Counselor Williams, a proposal for an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Lawrence, Indiana, establishing an advanced curfew for minors in the City of Lawrence.
Okay, that was recommended to council. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Counselor Williams. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Counselor Parker. Any discussion?
Was that a unanimous do pass? Okay.
There was some, Madam President, there was some concern about the curfew. And the ideal is that we need to get a handle on our youth just freelancing in the city, which opens up the opportunity for them to get in trouble. So this curfew, by having this in place, it gives the police department another tool to kind of deal with minors that are out frivolously just doing whatever with the chance of them getting in trouble. But they do have discretion to call the parent and get the child off the street and this and that. So it's just another tool to add in their toolbox.
And Madam President, if I may, just so the council members were aware, I think some were surprised, as I was, when I started researching it, that there is not a current curfew in Lawrence.
Right.
Except oddly enough, if you're taking your child with you to an adult bookstore, there's a curfew. Not sure how that one came about, but, so we're trying to get a curfew, a real one in place, and this matches what state law says that a municipality can do in that regard.
Madam President,
Yes, Counselor Giles.
have we, this went to committee already?
Yes, and it was recommended to council.
Okay, so I apologize for missing that committee meeting, because that's where I should have been. I'm just curious on what are the statistics of the success of deterring of crime due to curfews?
Chief, any idea of how this might help in your law enforcement efforts?
No, ma'am.
No, okay. That was in short and easy answer. So I think it's an effort, and I guess we'll have to see whether or
Come
not.
back with some stats or.
Well, I'm going to lean my opinion with your stats. This is very popular. It was really popular in the 90s of putting curfews on students, on people. And guess what? I'm 40 years old. I grew up in the 90s. And so when that first kind of hit the books, it was, police officers using tools, and I got harassed. I'll be honest with you, it was a tool that cops used to get us out of downtown when we used to hang out downtown. It was a rule to harass the shit. Ooh, excuse me, Lord have mercy. That's how I felt about it, because the only time as a teenager I ever thought I was going to jail was because of curfew. And I was a working man. See, one thing you have to realize, not all children are children. I had a child at 16 years old. I was a man. And I didn't like that I could get arrested for being on the street. I was paying taxes. So that's just something else to think about. And if you don't have any real hard statistics to show where that's going to change and really make a difference, I understand your efforts, but it gets sticky. I don't want officers, it could get really messy. Thank you.
Can I make a comment? I do remember one of the concerns was, we talked about this. You've got a neighborhood with a basketball goal, group of kids playing past the curfew time, parents are okay with it. But I think there was language in here that specifically said the discretion right, of the police officers.
Correct, and it wouldn't be the policy of the Lawrence Police Department to harass anybody. But this would be, I think, it'll give the officers another tool, as you said, to reach out, call a parent, take a kid home. We don't want to be, conducting these random curfew sweeps, those kind of things that were popular in the 90s and early 2000s that were highly controversial, by the way. They would open up high school gyms instead of sending kids to juvenile, and it was a targeted approach to reduce juvenile violence and crime. So it would not be my policy of the Lawrence Police Department to go out and use this tool to harass kids that are out, playing basketball or something like that. But it would give our officers a little bit of teeth to say, yes, I can stop and detain you, I can identify you, and I can get you in touch with your parents or a responsible adult.
Can I ask you this question? Currently now, if an officer pulls up on some youth that might look like they're loitering, that's an opportunity to call a parent and remove them from the street. Or the officer, can an officer just say, how do you, I don't want to criminalize, because one thing I'm concerned about in this council, I'm going to be honest with you, there's two ordinances on here that can really get sticky. The special event stuff at the house, then you couple it with the ordinance, we might find ourselves getting accused of things and pickled in things that were not our attention based on those ordinances, the fact. So I'm very, very concerned about the reputation and that Lawrence is a welcoming city. And so that concerns me, not so much of the attentions of our officers, but sometimes the perception from our public can sometimes be worse than what it's worth to us. So I would consider, as you look at the crime statistics, Chief, I just don't want to do anything else to muddy the waters of our community any further than need be. Thank you.
I was not at that code committee meeting where this was all discussed. So as I said, I'll be happy to come back and bring you any data. Anecdotally, I can tell you off the top of my head, we're not big curfew enforcers. It just hasn't been that big of an issue. Although we have had a spike in juvenile-related crime where juveniles are victims. So it's probably worthy of
You're in support of the curfew ordinance?
Yeah, I think this would be a good opportunity to give our officers, again, just one more tool in the toolbox to help address the issues that oftentimes surround activity with kids at night.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I got to get this, but you seem very indifferent to it if I'm listening to what you said. Of course, it's a tool that can help, but you said that you have not had a problem really in the city. You have had a spike in juvenile, but not as far as curfew related. Yes, anytime you can, put another, but I just want to see if this is really going to be a crime fighting tool that, you know what I mean? Because
we're talking 2 hours right now. In the city of Lawrence, there's not an existing curfew ordinance, so we fall back on the state of Indiana curfew law. As Ms. Wheeler pointed out, it's written in the legislation that municipalities can restrict the state law by 2 hours. Earlier, can't go later, but they can make it earlier. Mm-hmm. So that's really what we're talking about here. So really what we're talking about here is that 2 hours between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. on weekend nights.
So you're also saying we already have a curfew law.
And
maybe that's why the other councils didn't feel the need to do it, because we're governed under a state law and we're 2 hour difference. Now, I wasn't at the code committee meeting. What is that time frame, sir?
11 p.m. is what the city of Lawrence is proposing in this ordinance proposal. And the state of Indiana's time is 1 a.m.
Have we looked at work permits and things like that in this thing? Because I'm sorry, but this is for
work, you're accepted.
There's a list of exceptions.
There's a list of exceptions, going to work, going to.
How do you prove that you were coming from work?
In the state statute, it's work, in religion, or with an adult.
How do you prove that you were at work? Many jobs do not give out work IDs anymore.
Again, I'm not.
See the stickiness though that comes in that. You can't prove that the kid was at work or if he was leaving his girlfriend's house. Nobody gives out work badges anymore.
But Tyrell, I think the point being is that we're not creating the curfew law. It's already there, and actually it's a little bit more generous now than what we're proposing, the 1 a.m. versus the 11 p.m. So perhaps I think what the chief is saying is that it hasn't historically been an issue, but it is potentially an opportunity that the police department can use to help in certain
So
situations.
sorry, though, I just have to keep showing these examples. Just the other day, I went to a middle school football game, and there were 2 games on the same evening. And we did not get out of the 7th and 8th grade game.
School events are exempted.
What I'm saying, but when the kid leaves there and goes to Steak and Shake, I mean, you know what I'm saying? You know,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is that I mean, that was a real honest thing. We were out there. I mean, out there. I didn't get home till late. So that's why 1 o'clock, there's no reason for a child to be out at 1, but at 11, I can come up with some reasons.
Madam President, this proposal, if we do nothing, and the chief already articulated, we have a spike in juvenile-related crime. Correct, Chief?
Yes, sir.
So it is incumbent upon us to do something. Now, we always have the opportunity to come back and amend the ordinance as deemed necessary to fit our city, but not to have anything on the books. I think with all the things that's going on, and we all aware, it's incumbent upon us to do something. So I understand if I understand harassment. I do. I really do. But at the end of the day, this isn't about me per se as it is about thousands. So I would take thousands over me any day of the week and twice on Sunday. So I just think that however the council votes, it's on them. But at the end of the day, this is before us to vote on now.
Okay, any other counselors have questions, concerns? Okay, so we have a motion, Counselor Williams, second, Counselor Parker. All in favor by a show of hands? 7. Opposed? So 7-1 passes. Okay, proposal number 14, 2018.
Proposal number 14, 2018, introduced by Councilors Chevlot and Giles, a proposal for an ordinance fixing salaries of appointed officers and employees of the Police Department and the Fire Department for the year 2019.
Anyone like to make a motion? This was recommended by council, by committee, by the Finance Committee.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion, Counselor Chevlot.
I'll second.
Second, Counselor Giles. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All in favor by a show of hands? 6. Opposed?
That was 3.
I'm sorry, I thought I saw Counselor Williams' hand up, I'm sorry. So opposed, Wells, Williams, and Jones. So it's 4-3. Passes. Okay.
5-3. Right?
3.
Yes, 5, I'm sorry, 5-3 passes. Okay. Next, we have proposal number 15, 2018.
Proposal number 15, 2018, introduced by Councilors Chevlot and Giles, a proposal for an ordinance fixing salaries of appointed officers and employees of the City of Lawrence, Indiana for the year 2019.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Counselor Chevlot, did you want to do the formal amendment?
Oh.
Director of
Oh,
Parks
yes,
and
yes, yes.
Sorry, yes.
Just for everyone,
you're-
because
Yeah, I thought we did that out of committee, but
You have to do it here
The amendment would have to be approved by full council.
gotcha.
and voted on separately.
You're right, you're right. I make,
as amended.
I believe that would be, correct me if I'm wrong,
This is 15.
$62,654 to $82,750.
But the motion is
That's correct.
just as amended, that's what we normally.
it's just as amended.
We just do it as amended.
Proposal 15, 2000, proposal number 15, 2002.
Late the amended version?
Yeah.
Yeah. We got it.
We've never not amended things in council meeting.
No, we don't amend, we just say as amended, we don't make it specific what the amendment was when we make the
Okay.
motion.
Moved out of-
Make sure everybody's clear what the salary
Yeah.
band is.
Yeah, it got moved out of committee as amended. So I make a motion to accept Proposal 15, 2015 as amended.
Okay, motion, Counselor Chevlot. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Counselor Parker. Any discussion?
Madam President,
Yes, Counselor Williams?
let me be clear about what I initially tried to talk about on this proposal. I just think that our employees, public safety, and let me be absolutely clear, are some of the best that you can find. And they deserve every penny that we can muster up. But I also believe that our citizens deserve the same, meaning they deserve to be protected. And I think that we should do everything we possibly can to muster up every penny to hire more police officers, firefighters, employees, other departments that are short. And my earlier comment to such of all employees except for departmental heads, I think that's a small sacrifice for the beginning of saving a dollar to put it somewhere else in the community that is needed, i.e. DPW worker. Mr. Hennigan, correct? It's a lot of praise for doing a lot of work, going above and beyond. But at the end of the day, he's one person. We need more. We need more employees. So to me, I understand fixing the salaries for employees and everything, but have we done enough is my concern.
So, Counselor Williams, just for clarification, so can you explain what your request is?
There's no request. That was just a statement in reference to the salaries. I needed to get that out for clarity for the sake of initial comment that I made about sacrifice for departmental heads. That's all. Just a comment.
Okay, thank you. So I think I have a motion. Counselor Parker.
Second. Tom was first.
So, sorry, motion, Counselor Chevlot, second, Counselor Parker. Any more discussion?
Madam President, can I speak?
Yes, absolutely. You want to make a comment, Counselor Chevlot?
Real briefly, because we're talking about Proposal 15, which is civilian.
Yes.
And the chair of our committee was pretty pointed, because last year, I remember there was a lot of conversation about the staff for street department. And the chair was very clear is to the controller, do you have everything that you need? Do you have the enough money to be able to hire everybody you need? And it was yes. And I think he said, well, now's your time to get the money. And the affirmative from the controller was this budget allows them to be able to hire civilian employees to be able to do the work that needs to be done on the civilian side of things. So, Councilor Williams, I was a little confused because you were talking about public safety. That was 14, Proposal 14.
Proposal 15 says fixing the salaries of appointed officers and employees of the city. Public safety are employees. So at the end of the day, we whether it's public safety, whether it's city employees, the point is, I made a comment that covers both.
Okay.
At the end of yeah, that's all.
I was tracking on.
Right, I got you, yeah.
Fair enough. Okay.
I missed the opportunity to speak on public safety on 14.
Now I got you.
Oh,
I
so
just
you're
wanted to make
saying-
sure.
You're saying
yeah.
all department heads?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I think now I'm still clear. Okay.
Well, a little communication go a long way.
Yeah, and just for the record, we did also ask the department heads if they had everything they needed in this budget, and they all said yes. So, go right ahead.
Scott Salisbury with Utilities and the DPW and Street Department. And I do want to reiterate what I said at the Finance Committee meeting, which is that our budget for DPW street departments, we are hiring an additional person on the street department with the possibility of a second person later in the year. With regard to DPW, we are hiring another inspector. We are also changing the status of Sean McTush from part-time to full-time in that office. We are also refocusing Mr. Halfacre to do more code enforcement work. So there's a lot going on there, and not only that, but with regard to the street department, I think what you're seeing even now is there's a lot stricter discipline and accountability in that department with regard to how those employees' days are lined out and managed, and we are getting a lot more work done with the same group of people, which will only improve.
Okay.
And so I think with regard to the budget for street and DPW, I think we are okay, and we're actually moving, as I said at the committee meeting, to being more proactive with our code enforcement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Salisbury.
Yeah, thank you.
President Chavez, I also want to reiterate, there was a lot of conversation brought by you about several complaints from council members about code enforcement and clarity on that. How many do we have? What's their role? And so that was the opportunity for Mr. Anthony to come up and to identify the roles, the specifications of the job. And so I appreciate that. So a lot of conversation in that code committee, but with what Scott just said, I know I got clarity on code enforcement more so than I ever thought I would, and that's all baked into this.
And I just had a real small comment, really for everybody, an announcement regarding personnel. The Lawrence Police Department had their single largest hiring process. We swore in, on July 30th, we swore in 8 new police officers, and then just last week, on the 17th of September, we swore in another officer. So we've hired 9, and we are actually 1 officer above our budgeted strength. So as far as budgeted strength of the department is concerned, we are fully staffed and will be for several months. We're anticipating a retirement in January, but that's why we hired the additional person early. So that's just kind of a staffing update from the police department.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And there were nobody was shot on Saturday, by the way.
I got a question for the chief, and I'm kind of where Mr. Counselor Williams is on police officers on the street. On January 1st, 2016, do you know how many officers, full-time officers there was when you took over?
I believe 57.
There's actually 64. And right now we have 63. So actually, we're still 1 down. I got those numbers today.
We can talk offline about that, but
And-
that's not accurate.
But one more thing, Chief. We talk about the largest hiring process. I get it. But wasn't that due to a lot of retirees? We just backfill the number more so than add to the number.
Yeah, that's what I meant by the budgeted strength.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we get clarity to the public, because the perception is that, when you say fully staffed, we fully staffed, but at the end of the day, we're still short. We still need more personnel power out there on the street. So in my opinion, and that's all I'm getting at. So I just want to make sure we have clarity.
Yeah, we
on
had 3
exactly-
vacancies on our roster at the beginning of this year, and then we had 5 officers retire for either planned or medical retirements.
Correct.
So that was the 8 openings. That brings us to full strength.
Yes, sir.
And
Absolutely.
we could argue about, is full strength full enough for this city? That's another conversation altogether.
Well, and that was a question that I had, Chief. I assume that there is some science equation based on population, size of the city. I'm sure there's just not there's something there. So based on that and your professionalness, have you ran that equation or something?
We have not entered into that study yet. The FBI dictates that based on geography, numbers of calls for service, number of officers, those kinds of things, population growth. And that's just something we have not entered into yet. We were just trying to get up to full strength, which this year we were able. It wouldn't have mattered if we did a study that says, that results in findings that we need 80 officers in Lawrence. I mean, fact is, we were operating at 58, and I just wanted to get us up to full strength.
So I guess what one would say is that something, though, I'm sorry to get off, but, things get hairy like that, and so this can end those conversations. I would suggest to the city that once we get to that budgeted full strength, then I would like to make a suggestion to that we maybe look at seeing where we're at, because I don't know the last time we've done that. Our city has had some tremendous growth over the last 20 years. I don't know. So that would, if you came back with a study like that, I think that would be very helpful to kind of, see where we're really at. I just don't like the rumors going around if they're not based on fact. So I think that if you come with some fact, maybe we could kill those rumors.
I'm a big fan of stats and data.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate your time.
Screwed up. I thought we were on 16 right now.
I have no idea where we are.
We're at 15.
We have a
So proposal.
The amended.
Accept the amended version of 15.
Yes, so any more discussion on proposal number 15? Okay. All in favor by show of hands?
5.
5. Opposed? Okay,
Jones.
5-3. Same as the last one.
Hey, Madam President,
Now we have to make a motion to,
Hold on. So, okay, hold on a minute. Motion to adopt proposal number 15. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt.
Okay, the motion has been made to adopt amended proposal number 15. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Counselor Giles. Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Opposed? We're consistent. Great. Proposal number 6. Oh,
Madam President, if I could, as Mr. Chevlot told me, I got off on one of the proposals. So on proposal number 14, I would like to change my vote to a yay instead of a nay.
you got that, clerk?
on number 14?
I got mixed up.
For the police and fire.
Yes.
Sorry.
No problem. It is in the process of being noted. So that would be 6-2.
Will be 6-2. Got it.
Thank you for that clarification, Counselor Jones.
14. Okay.
Yes. Okay, moving right along. Proposal number 16, 2018.
Proposal number 16, 2018, introduced by Councilor Chevlot and Giles, a proposal for an ordinance transferring unused and unencumbered tax levy funds to the general fund.
Okay, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for approval of proposal number 16.
Motion, Counselor Giles. I'll second it. Second, Counselor Chavis. Any discussion on proposal number 16? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, by show of hands? Unanimous? Proposal number 17, 2018.
Proposal number 17, 2018, introduced by Councilor Chevlot and Giles, a proposal for an ordinance amending the municipal code of the City of Lawrence, Indiana regarding employee benefits and overtime.
Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for approval for proposal number 17.
Motion, Counselor Giles. Is there a second?
I'll make a second.
Second, Counselor Chevlot. Discussion.
I would just like to make a proposal or a motion that we send this back to finance and change some wording in here, especially on page 4 for attendee, for doctor, and then also describing the nature and duration of an illness.
I'll second it.
But there's already a motion on the,
Yeah, we have a motion on the floor.
And you can make another motion, Trump is motion, I mean, any motion can have another motion on top of it.
Can we finish this one? Do we need to?
But you can take a vote on whether, since he got a second, you can take
Yeah.
a vote on whether to take it to committee. If that fails, then you could vote on the first one.
Who made the,
Give
who
us-
made the second?
You didn't get one. I got one.
You can make it.
So my thing is that this is just wording. So in the past, we've just agreed on changing the wording, and then we can go ahead. Would you be fine with that? I don't think we necessarily need to assign it back to committee just to address attendee to, you know what I mean? Why don't we just make that decision right now and
We'd amend it? Is that
Well,
what you're saying?
wording?
I think if Counselor Jones wants to amend this, he mentioned 5 different things, and quite frankly,
He just said 2 just now. So what
when we
what is your
talked about this,
recommendation?
so when we first talked about this,
There's about 5.
there's about 5 different issues that he had with this proposal. So if we're going to amend this, I want to know which 5. And now it's down to page 4 on D, which is shall, as opposed to may. I just want to be clear. Are we,
My biggest 3 are on page 4. I think that for employees to have sick time, that it shall be automatically carried over without going to a supervisor and getting approval. And then down in D, where it says 24 hours of sick time, they have to visit an attendee, which is a doctor. I think that needs to be changed to doctor, nurse practitioner, or physician assistant. And then later on in that sentence also, it says the nature and duration of the illness. I believe that is a violation of the Rehabilitation Act.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Counselor Giles.
sorry, I don't know how parliamentary on this, but I have no problem with his amendment as far as the items, as far as physician assistants and that sort of stuff. That doesn't change the spirit of the ordinance. But the shall, that's a vote for no. That's not an amendment. That changes everything. And so I would rather we amend it with those language and see Councilor Jones vote no, than, because it really truly does change the whole spirit of why the ordinance was drafted.
The only thing I see is our employees work extremely hard. If we have a single mom, single dad, they have a couple hundred hours of sick time, and they're working 2 jobs, and they forget to send a letter to their supervisors to carry over their sick time, and they lose it, I don't feel that's appropriate. I don't know of any other place where you have to send a letter to carry over your sick time. Every place that I know of automatically does that.
So, Madam Chair, would you entertain an amendment that we take out the discretion that they have? Because that is what I keep going back and forth with you, Councilman, is that if this is a serious, I mean, I wish I had the PowerPoint here, if you remember a review of that. So if we don't, the spirit of this is that it will be the exception for someone to have their time rolled over. The rule would be that your time is not to roll over. So the single mom who forgets, that's not the scenario, because I hope that she uses her time, and if she doesn't, I hope that the manager probably don't give it to her unless there's something of exceptional deal. Otherwise, we're going to keep racking up the debt that we're trying to fight. I mean, we are at a real detriment that if we let this debt go, we will have to lay off public safety workers due to people retiring
I think,
based on vacation time.
yeah, I think it's important to note, and Controller Fenwick, clarify me, but this doesn't impact existing employees. Under B, for employees hired on or before December 31st, the rules for accrual sick leave are the same as those pertaining to the accrual of vacation credit purchased in divisions D and E, blah, blah, blah. The paragraph next, for employees hired on or after January 1, 2019, that's where the change occurs. So no existing employees of this policy changes.
Well, I do,
That's correct.
no, but existing employees will no longer, after 2019, in my understanding, be able to roll over time unless they utilize this exemption.
When I
Let's
talk
get,
to
let's
Bev-
let's get clarification first from Controller Fenwick, because he is intimately aware of
The
what's
language
included.
regarding carryover didn't really change, but the intent of the ordinance is the four changes that did occur in terms of either how you accrue time or what time is available do only impact new hires on January 1 of 2019 and beyond. So there would not have been a change in that for current employees. But in terms of how sick time, et cetera, is carried forward, that language didn't really change. So that's the way it's always been in terms of it being discretionary to the department head.
So that means the department heads have discretionarily let people just roll it over?
You could interpret it that way, yes.
See, I went and talked to Bev Solenberg, which is in charge of this, with Mr. Fenwick's permission. And they have to notify their supervisor that they want to carry over their sick time. I see where the spirit comes in and saving money, but when you go up to B, I think where the spirit comes in, from 1,200 hours, you go down to 600, so we cut off 600 hours.
Which has always been the case.
Yeah.
It's not a change.
So, I mean, I just hate to see someone lose their time because they had forgotten to do that. Now, Bev has been very assertive and worked extremely hard and reached out to people, but someone else that may get that position may not do that. And we could get someone that loses their sick time because they apparently just forgot to contact their supervisor.
I'm going to be very harsh and say that people need to handle their business. We have to put our city first and not put every little thing for someone who doesn't handle their business. And I'm sorry.
If I could interject, and I agree with Counselor Giles, because this is right now, a $4.5 million problem that the city currently has. And what we're trying to do is draw a line in the sand and say, down the road, we're not going to continue to kick this can down the road and also defer addressing this to a future either council or administration. We have to do something right now, because I am telling you, in a couple of years, this is going to be a real problem. And whomever's up here will be sitting up here with a very tough decision to make, which is, what do? Do I pay these retirement payouts, or do I not hire, at best, public safety officials, or do we actually have to talk about doing something even more drastic? That's how bad it is. And I think this is a step in the right direction. And if we don't address it, that's fine, but you now take ownership of the $4.5 million problem. And you can figure out how we can address it, because that's how bad it is.
May I say something, President King?
Yes.
Counselor Jones, with all due respect, you may speak to whomever you like, as any council member can. It does concern me when you raise a legal question for the first time when a proposal is up for final vote that I have not heard before, in fairness to the other council members, and in fairness, frankly, to me. But that said, I have signed off as to form and legality on this ordinance. I believe it is legally appropriate. I do not believe it is a violation of federal law. If I thought that, I would not have signed off on it. It's not fair to me to ask me, I can't tell you off the top of my head, what citation that is. That is a very large act of many provisions. I can tell you what I've told you before, that I believe other cities, the state, and other private employers have very similar requirements. Frankly, even for a practical purpose, because if somebody's sick for 4 days, you don't want them coming back and sharing whatever communicable disease they might have with their coworkers. So that said, if you choose to send this back to committee per the pending motion, I will happily work with any amendments that the committee would like to make. But it does sound like some of these linguistic changes do appear to me to gut the intent of this proposal.
Thank you. So there's a motion on the floor. and Counselor Jones to send this back to committee for amendments, and it's been second by Counselor Wells. Yes, it has, and so we're going to vote on that. So all in favor by show of hands to send this back to committee? It's 2. Opposed? Okay.
Defeated.
That was defeated, so there's a motion, and now I have to try to remember. I believe the motion was made by Counselor Chevlot
Yes, ma'am.
and seconded by,
Giles and Shep.
I was made a Chevrolet second.
so Counselor Giles, second by Counselor Chevlot.
Okay.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor by a show of hands? 6. Opposed? 2.
Wells and Jones, right?
Correct. Proposal number 17, 2018. Next, we have proposal number 18, 2018.
Proposal number 18, 2018, introduced by Councilor Shavelot and Giles, a proposal for an ordinance for appropriations and tax rates for the 2019 budget year.
Yeah, so this remains in committee. Okay. All right, we got through unfinished business. Next is new business. There is none. Comments of the administration?
Just have 2 quick comments. Wanted to pass on some good news that the city received regarding the water utility. So if everyone remembers, spring of last year, obviously we had to, and the council included, had to address some challenges at the water utility. So in the summer of last year, we visited with Standard & Poor's, the rating agency. The water utility was rated junk last summer, BB+. After our meeting, about 6 weeks later last year, we received a 2-notch upgrade back to investment grade. So the utility was BBB with positive outlook, which then allowed the water utility to refund some outstanding bonds, saving about $2.5 million. So this summer, we went back up and visited with S&P and just recently received another 2-notch upgrade. So we're back to A- with positive outlook. And these 2 upgrades alone, between the $2.5 million last year plus plans for next year, will save the water utility at least $3.5 million in less than a year. So that was great news on the utility front. And then speaking of the utility as well, I know I've had some comments in Mr. Salisbury as well over the last 2.5 years about why can't we sign up for e-billing, do recurring credit card payments, things along that line. So we actually launched a new bill pay site on Thursday of last week. So it is now available to any Lawrence utility customer. You can create your account, sign up for e-billing, eliminate paper statements being mailed each month, sign up for recurring credit or debit card payments. So it's a pretty useful platform. You can view prior bills, prior consumption history. So encourage everybody that wants to pay their bill online, check it out.
Yes, Counselor Giles.
I'm sorry, I have one thing I want you to reiterate. We got beat up in that water deal, and I want you to resolve that we had in raising that rate is a direct reflection of why our ratings have gone up. You said $3 million?
3.5.
3.5 and counting.
Hey, good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Fenwick, if I may, before you,
Okay.
in regard to the budget, you know, I understand that you've put forth a great budget, and I'm very happy that the Finance Committee has so much faith in it. It is complicated, and I'm not an accountant, you know, I operate a business, but this is pretty intense, and I don't mean to offend you by questioning this budget. It's not my intent. And like I said, the Finance Committee obviously has full confidence in this budget, but I think it is my job as an elected council person to make sure that there aren't any problems, any glitches in it, if you will. There are things on it that I don't understand. And yes, you're right, I have not contacted you, but, you know, I made a comment very first thing in council comments. You know, another question that I had of this administration has yet to go unanswered. I've had several comments, well, several questions that, information requests that, as I made public prior, that I've had a very difficult time in getting. So therefore, yeah, I probably should have brought forth some of these questions in all fairness to you and, you know, see where that would have went. But my attempts in trying to obtain information from this administration has gone very poorly for me. So I just want to go on record as saying that. I mean no offense to you. I just think it's my job as a council person to question this budget. And if I know the council, previous councilors or councils have went, and they have went to a outside source to have them reviewed. And like I said, I mean no disrespect to you by that, sir.
None taken.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Citizens' comments. Come on up. Please state your name and address for the record.
It's Linda Moore. It's 4909 Leone Drive. I want to thank the police department for the quick response we've had for a couple issues in the neighborhood. I know we had a dog issue, and then we had some other disturbance type things with some young teenagers, adults. So, been brought to my attention, we've had a lot of speeding problems in the Brookhaven area, especially over on Catherine Drive. Disregard on stop signs, just a lot of just those real basic issues. But I'm getting complaints and calls to me about those things.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, something else I did not see in the budget, and maybe I overlooked it, was budgeting for the animal shelter. That was a campaign issue to begin with. I don't see any startup cost or organizational cost out there. I think that's important given the number of dog issues we've got in at least my part of the neighborhood. In fact, there's quite a few calls that we have had on dog issues, be they loose dogs or dog attacks or whatever, and we need to get animal control on those things as well as figure out a shelter issue. The curfew, while a lot of people may not see that as important, I'm glad that went ahead and passed because the elderly in our neighborhood have been harassed by teenagers who are out at all hours. And those teenagers who are out at all hours are getting into trouble, they're getting into cars, they're getting into places they don't. So at least there's some structure there, not to harass these kids all the time, but when you see them out at a late hour, it is questionable what they are up to, because some of them are not returning from a school function. They're roaming. So, and the last thing, I continue to be amazed at the rudeness of just the council in general. You know, the little barbs that are here and there, and that does not look well for the people sitting at home watching these proceedings. So, thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your time. We're adjourned.